Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series, How to Read Music for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about syncopation. First off, if you like all the diagrams for this series, including the diagrams for this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, How to Read Music for Guitar. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it might not be available as you're watching this lesson. If it is available, a link will pop up on the screen that'll allow you to download it. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to download it when it is available. This is part 35 from our series, How to Read Music for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So I'm going to talk about syncopation, and syncopation is extremely important to understand for music in general, but it's also really important to understand when you're reading music, to understand what it looks like and how to count it. And I'm not diving too deep into this lesson since this lesson is really just about reading music. I'll dive deeper in rhythm courses that I create, but for now, like I said, it's just important to understand the concept and understand how to count it. And syncopation is stressing unexpected beats or accenting unexpected beats or moving a note to an unexpected place or what's called an offbeat. And it's a lot easier to demonstrate and show you examples and actually have you listen to audio examples. It's something you pretty much have to listen to fully grasp. And it's really something you probably already know intuitively. It's something you've heard a lot because a lot of music is based on syncopation. The rhythm is, for example, jazz is based on a syncopation rhythm. Funk uses syncopation all the time. So you probably already know what syncopation is. You probably just didn't realize that that's what was going on. And syncopation can be the difference of a rhythm being really straight, boring, and vanilla to being spiced up and interesting with a really good rhythmic feel. So if we just look at this rhythm in 4/4 time, which is just 4 quarter notes, the most basic way to write 4/4 time, and you're going to count this out, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the beats, that's what you would count. It's where you tap your foot. If you've come this far, you know that already. And all these notes are falling right on the beat. You just have them falling right on the beat. Nothing syncopated about this at all. But I could create syncopation in multiple ways. One way, I could do this. So now the first bar is still just regular, everything's falling on the beat. But here when we come to the third beat, I've added an 8th note rest and then a quarter note right after that 8th note rest. So this part right here is all syncopated. Because what's happening is your notes are falling right on the beat here. On this beat, on the third beat where you expect a note or an accent to land, you've created a rest and then put that note right after that beat or right before this beat, the fourth beat, and it carries through the fourth beat since this is a quarter note, and then after that quarter note I've just added another 8th note to finish it off. So if you were to count it, it would look like this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, obviously just your standard, then 1, 2 right on the beat, those notes are falling right on the beat. When you count 3 and you're tapping your foot, you're resting, and then on the and you're playing a quarter note which carries through the fourth beat. So when you count 4, this quarter note is carrying through, and then you're just playing an 8th note on that last and. So this is called syncopation. And I'm going to demonstrate with an audio example so you can actually hear it and hear the difference between just everything landing right on the beat and then where the syncopation is happening. Because like I said, syncopation is something you really have to hear to understand. I can't just explain it and have you fully grasp it, but once you hear it, I think it'll make a lot more sense. So hopefully you can really hear the difference where that syncopation happens. And if I was to do something like this and just put a quarter note rest on that third beat, that's not syncopation because you just have everything landing on the beats, and then right here you're resting on that beat, but it's a quarter note beat, so then you just fall right back in line on that last beat, on the fourth beat. So nothing syncopated about that. But right here, when we added that 8th note rest instead of a quarter note rest, that put this note on the and it carries through the 4, which really creates that syncopation through there. Or another way I could create syncopation, it doesn't have to be with rest, that's just one way you can do it, is on this second bar to have a dotted quarter note now. So a dotted quarter note gets the quarter note count obviously, but then you have that dot which adds in an 8th note value. So that would count for 1 and 2. So this dotted quarter note carries through the 1 and the 2, and then if you put an 8th note or a note right after that on the and, you've created syncopation here. Because this note is happening in an unexpected place. It's not falling on this beat. So you're playing this note on an off beat, which is right on that and. So again, you just have to listen to this to hear what that sounds like to really grasp it. And of course, syncopation doesn't just happen with quarter notes. That's just one of the easiest ways to start looking at it. But here's all 8 notes. If I wanted to create some syncopation here, for example, something I could do is add an 8th note rest on this 2, the second beat of this bar, and then play an 8th note right after it on the and. So that would create a little syncopation through there. Because you're not playing that note right on that beat where you'd expect it, then you play it right after it. So that would sound like this. Or an example with 8th notes that's not syncopation, I could put that same 8th note rest, but if I put it on the and then pick right up on the 2 right after it, that's not syncopation because your notes are still falling right on the beats. So no note is landing in an unexpected place. Or if we look at this example, which we've looked at multiple times, this melody that I've been showing you over and over again doesn't have any syncopation in it. Everything's just landing right on the beat. 1, 2, 3, which carries through to the 4, 1, which carries through to the 2. This lands right on the beat, that 8th note, those 2 8th notes. This lands on the beat, this lands on the beat. This lands right on the beat on the 2, which carries through all of the second beat. This lands on the beat, this lands on the beat, this lands on the beat. There's no syncopation whatsoever in there. But if I wanted to play this exact same melody, but actually have syncopation with it to make it more interesting, I could do something like this. So now I have the exact same melody going on, but I've just shifted where those notes land so it creates syncopation. So now with the first note, instead of just being a quarter note, I have a dotted quarter note which carries through the second beat, and then I put this note now on the and instead of on the second beat, which then carries through on the third beat, and then I put this note on the and make it a dotted quarter note to fill out this bar instead of a half note. And so all through here you have syncopation. So I'm still playing the same notes, I've just shifted where they land and changed their rhythmic values. Or again, on the second bar, instead of playing a half note here, this note lands right on the beat, that's not syncopated. But up here it was a half note which carried through the second beat, and then the next one picked right up on the third beat, which is not syncopated. But this one I changed into a quarter note, and then on that second beat I added an 8th note rest, and then this note, instead of landing on the third beat, is landing on the and right before the third beat. So I've anticipated this beat, and then this note I've put on the and of 3, so it's anticipating the fourth beat, and I did that by creating an 8th note rest in between again, and made an 8th note rest on that fourth beat, and then that last note, instead of being a quarter note right on the fourth beat, is an 8th note on the and of the 4. So that's all syncopated through there, everything except this first note. Or this next bar, this is not syncopated, this note lands right on the beat, this note lands right on the beat, which isn't syncopated, this note lands right on the beat, which isn't syncopated, and that's all the same as what was going on up here, it's just mimicked the same. But then, instead of doing a quarter note right on that fourth beat, I added an 8th note rest and shifted this note to the and of 4 with an 8th note, so that creates syncopation in there. And then I tied that 8th note to another 8th note starting the first bar instead of going just into a whole note right on the beat like I did up here. And doing that, having an 8th note right here, which was tied together with the last 8th note, so you've really just played a quarter note on the and that's carried through this beat on the next bar. And then I've just put a note right on the and of 1 and just filled out the rest of the bar with the double dot. So this all through here creates syncopation, unlike up here everything was just straight on that beat. So now I'm just going to play both examples through for you so you can really hear. Exact same melody, exact same notes, but by anticipating beats or coming after the beats, putting the notes in unexpected places with rests or other rhythmic values, I've created syncopation. So I've taken a really vanilla rhythm and melody and made it syncopated, which creates a lot more interest. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of what syncopation is. Like I said, it's something you've heard many times, but probably just didn't realize that's what's going on. And it can take something that's some melody or rhythm that's really vanilla and kind of boring and really spice it up and make it really interesting. And like I said, I'm going to dive deeper into this in my rhythm courses, but for now I just wanted you to actually understand what's going on with syncopation, and when you're looking at a written piece of music, what it would actually look like, different examples of what it could look like, and different ways to create it. So that's an explanation of syncopation. Go ahead and move on to the next lesson where I'm going to talk about dynamics. And be sure to download the e-guide. All the diagrams are in there, and be sure to subscribe because we had at least one new lesson every day.